at night because by day he is always surrounded by abhyasis. Because he was always with the abhyasis from 9 o'clock in the morning till almost 1 o'clock at night sometimes. Then after some years I could see that he was working in the day also, without the abhyasis knowing it. When he looked at us, he was transmitting. When he spoke to us, he was transmitting. But yet his most important work was always at night between 1 and 4 or 5. And he explained to me that it is because at that time the abhyasi is not aware of what is being done. This is a funny thing, because on the one side we have to be aware, and it seems also that we should not be aware. Quite a bit confusion. Yeah. So I have once asked Master how to resolve this confusion. Babuji told me we should be aware of what is going on, because that improves our sensitivity. And he was also a little troubled, because when we are aware that he is beginning the work, we are also resisting it. And he said that my observation was correct. This is the main problem in spiritual work. It seems almost that we should not be aware of what he is doing, but we should be aware of how it is working on us. That is why he was compelled to work at night, not because he didn't want to sleep. But then we sacrifice two things. We sacrifice the awareness of the work, and we also sacrifice the awareness of what is going on inside us. So it would appear that because of our egoistic resistance, we are losing two things, and both are related to awareness. But Babuji was gracious enough to work at night, because whether we knew it or not, we still benefited from his work. That was his greatness. So we should now learn somehow to be conscious of his work and yet not resist it. I think that was the main purpose of Babuji's visits to all of us so many times and so many years. I once asked him, why is it necessary to do work which they should be conscious of? Because you are in any case able to give them the benefit of the spiritual work that you do at night. He told me, you are right, but one very important element is left out. That is, they don't know what they are receiving. That is number one. And there is an even more important element that is missing. That is, unless they know that the master is giving them something, there is no reason for the relationship between the master and the disciple to develop. And the third most important thing, according to Babuji, is that unless there is a relationship between the master and the disciple, love cannot develop. And without that love, the highest spiritual level cannot be attained. So the work of the master has two aspects. The spiritual work which he can do and he does at night without our knowing it, which gives us, I think, more than 80% of the benefit that we derive, and which takes for him only probably 5% of the effort. And the other 95% of the work is with us during the daytime, consciously, with our awareness, which work from our aspect is more important for us. Because that is what makes it possible for us to develop love for the master and become one with him. So the important thing to realize is that it is not enough to have spiritual benefit alone. Of course, it has its place, but it is like primary education for children. And that gift the master gives us whether we want it or not. But if an abhyasi wants to become like the master and become one with him, which is the highest goal of spiritual practice, then this daytime exposure to the master, his work, becomes most important. So that is why he had to travel all his life to centers all over the world, and that is why it becomes important that we as abhyasis cooperate with him fully in this aspect of his work. There is only one way in which we can really cooperate. What is it that obstructs his work when we are conscious of his work? Our wishes, our desires, our ego. So the wishes and desires, that is what we say in the prayers. They are putting a bar to our advancement. But when we realize that desires, wishes also come from the ego, then we realize that we have to surrender the ego itself to the master. And the only way to begin this process of surrendering is to obey. In our old yogic literature, it is said that we should do what the Guru says, and that is the beginning and end of spiritual practice. So if anything will guarantee total success in spiritual life, it is obedience. Because obedience means we don't think of what he asks us to do, we do it. Only one who has more or less given up the egoistic attitude can obey the master. So I would request all of you to practice this obedience very seriously. And where to begin? With the 10 maxims of Sahaj Marg. There is no use in saying, oh, we are in Europe, this is not possible, that is not possible. That is not obedience, you see. Anybody can obey that which is possible to obey. The test of obedience is, are we obedient when we cannot possibly obey? It is like love. Everybody can love that which is lovable. That is why it is so easy to love children, especially babies. They are so lovable. Who will not love a baby? But when the baby becomes older and becomes an adult, somehow that adult seems to lose lovable qualities. That is what we think. But if your love is constant, you must love whatever be the change in the beloved. Isn't it? So similarly, we love the master. We all say we love the master. So then we must love everything that he tells us to do, and that is real obedience. So love for the master must be reflected in obedience. Therefore I say that without love, obedience also is not possible. Because this is not the military type of obedience. There we obey because otherwise we are likely to be punished. That is why there is so much resistance to rules and regulations. It is not that we don't want to obey and follow these rules and regulations, but we question the right of someone or some agency to punish us if we disobey. So whenever in a society we find resistance to rules and regulations, it is the fear of punishment, and behind it is our questioning the right of the other person to punish us, and that must be based on fear. Only one who is afraid of punishment. So especially in countries where they talk too much about liberty and things like that, it is my feeling that there is fear behind all this. And that is why Babuji said the real freedom is freedom from freedom. Because whenever we are conscious of freedom, we are really conscious of the previous bondage from which we are free. Now in a situation or an association where love is the cause of the association, there should be no fear, because love and fear cannot exist. Then what is the problem with obedience? Because we know that if we don't obey, there is no punishment at all. Whereas obedience gives us the highest goal of human life. So is it not sensible to obey the master? So I think obedience of the master really shows that we are very sensible and we also love the master. Now we are only sensible, but I am always, what should I say, inclined to equate obedience with love. And increasing love must be reflected in increasing obedience. And when that love is absolute, obedience must be absolute. So I always judge an Abhyasi's love for the master by the degree of obedience that is visible to us. To me, it is a direct relationship. Obedience, love. More obedience, more love. Highest obedience, highest love. And how is this possible? Because people can say, but I have not the capacity to obey. It is a very great secret, but a very small thing. Because when you love a person totally, you are constantly remembering that person. And obedience in his remembrance gives us his powers. Therefore, we work with his powers. Therefore, when we are loving the master and we are remembering him all the time, we use his powers. Whereas when we are not remembering him and loving him, we use our powers. Therefore, we say, I remember the master because we don't love him. We are dependent on our own capacities. And naturally we fail. So this is the great secret of obedience. It is not easy to love, but it's easy to obey. And it is my experience that if you just obey and go on and on, it is easier than trying to love somebody. So my advice to all Abhyasis, please become obedient. Don't think of what is possible or what is impossible for us. Because even in any small work, if you start with a doubt, it is impossible. As Babuji said, doubt poisons the will. You know, if I have to lift this chair and I say, oh, can you lift it? I cannot lift it. But if you take it up with confidence, then automatically your power will work and you will be able to lift it. So we should begin with a positive attitude to obedience. If the master says, get up at dawn, we should try it. But people ask, what should I do after 5 o'clock if I get up? I have nothing to do. Well, try to find something to do. Meditate. There's enough to do in the morning. But in Europe, everybody gets up late. Why? Because we sleep late. Why? Because we go for parties or with friends. Why? Because that is social life. There's no end to that. So I ask one question. Do you want spiritual life? Because all of Europeans want spiritual life. You know, how is it possible? Well, why do you want to do everything that all of the Europeans do? Isn't it? So you want something which all Europeans don't want.
No,
Then you must be prepared to do something which all Europeans don't do. So when it comes to wanting something, we are prepared to be non-Europeans. But when we have to do something to get it, we are Europeans. This attitude of duality must be dropped. Because spirituality is not European or Indian or Chinese or American. It is divine. And when the master says, this is available and this you must do, we have to do it. There is no compulsion. The master says, if you want this, then you must do this. Very common thing. If I want to eat boiled potatoes, I have to light the stove, boil the water, put the potatoes and boil it. If you say, but Chari, we are in a free society, I don't want to do all this, eat raw potatoes. Why I am saying this is, obedience is not for the sake of the master, it is for the sake of yourself. You know, like we obey so many things, don't smoke near a petrol station. Because if the fire bursts there, you will also die with it. So all obedience is for the sake of the self. Also it is for your sake that you are obedient. Therefore, you practice for your own development. You have to develop obedience to make that practice effective for your own development. That develops love for the master, you to the highest stage of development. And one day that will take you to the master and make you one with him again for your sake. So I would like to close this small talk by saying that it is only in the field of spirituality that obedience gives total benefit. Ordinary rules and regulations, obedience prevents accidents, see something like that. It's a preventive thing. Don't smoke in a petrol station. Well, I only prevent a fire. I don't get anything positive out of it. Don't cross when the red light is on. I only avoid an accident. Don't swim in the river when the water is polluted. Again, it is an avoidance of an accident. Don't look out of the window from a train. Again, you save your head from an accident. Negative benefits. In the field of spirituality, obedience gives positive results, positive benefits. So I recommend obedience as a start. And try to begin with the 10 maxims, any one of them, it doesn't matter. It is not necessary to begin with number 1 and then go to number 2. Start anywhere. In obedience, most important thing to remember is don't think, start doing. Thank you.